Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the flexibility. I was there in person earlier. As you know, multiple committees are meeting, so I'm joining virtually. But want to begin by recognizing that my home state of California has actually three nuclear facilities in various stages of decommissioning: San Onofre, Rancho Seco, and Humboldt Bay, with the most recent action being the NRC's November 18th announcement that it has terminated the license for Humboldt Bay's Unit 3 and released a unit site for unrestricted use. Operating nuclear power plants provides economic opportunities for local communities during their operation. And as plants are decommissioned, communities often experience a significant loss of tax revenue and a loss of good paying jobs. I know Senator Duckworth already spoke earlier about the Stranded Act and what it could mean for communities undergoing these sorts of transitions, but wanted to point out another unique element of the decommissioning process and future use of sites. You know, some of California's decommissioned facilities are connected to or located very near existing electrical transmission infrastructure. And given the stigma around reusing former nuclear facilities because of cleanup concerns and otherwise, it does beg the question of how we can best put this land use after facilities are decommissioned, how we best use the area. So, question for Mr. Nabel: beyond just financial support, are there additional support or services that the government could provide to smooth transitions and maintain local economies following the closures of the nuclear power plants?
Thank you, Senator Padilla. I believe Senator Duckworth's act addresses that in part with the task force and the creative grant program or gift prize program. As you mentioned, there's a stigma associated with a decommissioned plant that you can look at 90 acres of lakefront property and say that'd be fantastic, but who's going to want to build on a prior nuclear footprint? And on a local level, we try and look at ways to reuse that, and we try and attract business. We try and look at is there a potential for a natural gas plant? Again, you have the switch yard there for the electric grid infrastructure. So anything that can be identified through federal resources to help get us back on track would obviously be appreciated. And I think it's necessary to dig out of the hole for our community, for yours, for everyone that's affected by this ultimately. As I mentioned earlier, we have to make sure that we're around to be able to benefit from that, because something like that is going to take quite a while to develop and see the benefit of. So step one of the Stranded Act deals with non-competitive grants, but there is hope that ultimately there will be some sort of highest and best use for that property. But we know that it will never be what we originally had, what was there, and what was promised, especially while the spent fuel is still on site.
All right, to be continued. The second question, let me frame it here. Currently, there's roughly 86,000 metric tons of commercial spent fuel sitting in communities, not just across California, but across the country. And that figure is increasing at the rate of about 22 metric tons per year. Now, the waste is currently stored at 121 sites in 35 states, mostly at the very same facilities that produced it. In the next few years, all of California's nuclear power plants will be shut down or in the decommissioning process, which will leave the spent nuclear fuel at each power plant site. Again, referencing California specifically here. As I'm sure you all know, despite safety assurances, localized storage garners intense public interest, particularly in California in light of seismic activity and earthquake risk. I know there's increasing dialogue about the consent-based siting strategy for storage, but wanted to ask Mr. Cohen this question: if an interim or permanent storage site ever did become operational, spent fuel and waste would have to be transported, through countless communities from their current site to that interim or permanent storage site, how do you balance that transportation need with the alternative of leaving waste where it currently is from a risk and benefit standpoint?
It's a great question, and I would, I'll venture a personal opinion, maybe not even an organizational opinion on this, that that it has been demonstrated that we can transport nuclear waste safely. It's been done for many decades, and the however, and the alternative, right, is to leave everything where it is. So you do have a trade-off. There's always some risk in transport, but there's also a risk, certainly, to future economic development in communities, as you've noted, in leaving things on site. I mean, I think the best thinking is that combination that we really need to move this waste. And again, I don't think it's an impossible task to do that safely. I can provide a more thoughtful and extended answer in writing if you prefer, because we think the evidence does support that you can safely transport nuclear spent fuel.
Yeah, a written response would be helpful and appreciated. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.